Welcome back, dear friends, to Emotional Edge, where every story shines a light on courage, loyalty, and the quiet power of the human heart. Today's story begins beneath the bright sun of the Ozarks, where a veteran and his loyal dog uncover something that was never meant to be found. It starts with a faint glint of metal under the clay and the low growl of a dog that senses more than danger. It senses history waking up. A crowbar bites into the earth, and decades of silence scream back. Not gold, not relics, but two uniforms turned to bone and a single lighter engraved with DM. The air smells of rust, lies, and time refusing to stay buried. In a town that smiles too easily, one man's search for truth will shatter what peace remains. Because when loyalty meets betrayal, even daylight can turn into judgment. Stay with us. This story will haunt you and heal you. Thank you for watching this story on The Veteran's Companion, where every tale reminds us that kindness, courage, and loyalty still matter. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Your support helps us keep sharing heartfelt stories that bring warmth, hope, and humanity back into our world. From all of us here, and from every loyal dog and quiet hero we honor, thank you for being part of our family. Thank you for being part of this journey. Now, let's continue our story. By late morning, the Ozark air had that clean, resinous brightness that makes every pine needle shine. Ethan Rowe, 39, sun-tanned and steady, followed the narrow game trail while Rex, his 8-year-old German shepherd, quartered ahead with the easy precision of a seasoned partner. The flood had chewed a new bite out of the ravine, exposing roots, stones, and, where Rex stopped with a low, warning hum, a slab of dull gray not belonging to any hillside. Ethan slid down, boots skidding, palms gritty with clay. The thing was thick, riveted, and fused to the bank like a shipwreck swallowed by land. He brushed away mud with his glove, rust flaked like red snow. A seam appeared, then a hinge. Armored, he murmured, half to Rex, half to the memory of motor pools and convoy checks. The entrenching tool rang against steel. The crowbar screamed through decades of silence. Sunlight pressed into the seam as the door grudgingly surrendered. Daylight spilled into a box of darkness, and the darkness breathed back a sour exhale, mildew, oil, the stillness of sealed time. Ethan raised his light. 2 seats, 2 slumped forms in what remained of security uniforms. Shell casings glittered like fallen teeth. The safe in the rear stood ripped open, its mouth torn away by violence long since cooled. Rex ignored the bones and pawed hard beneath the driver's seat. Ethan knelt, pried gently, and found a metal Zippo, silver under grime, engraved with 2 careful letters, DM. He felt the weight of it in his palm. How something small can tilt a whole world. He pocketed the lighter, photographed the interior, then eased the door back and camouflaged the scar with brush and fallen limbs. The sun lay warm on his neck, but the day had shifted, bright as ever and sharper too, as though the light itself had decided to start telling the truth. "Come on, partner," he said, climbing out. Rex followed, tail low, eyes alive. They began the walk toward town, hauling a story that would not stay buried. Harmony Creek looked friendly in noon light. Brick storefronts, flags fading politely, a diner window reflecting sky. Inside the modest library, the smell of paper and polish was its own kind of blessing. Martha Gable, silver hair pinned back and eyes that had seen everything, threaded microfilm for Ethan without fuss. Frames flickered by, cattle auctions, county fairs, small victories, until the headline from 1987 hardened into view. Sterling security truck vanishes with $5 million. Names. A route. A last radio check. Then nothing. For weeks, search grids and speculation. For months, rumors thinning like mist. And then abruptly, silence. Ethan jotted times and mile markers, the pattern of official attention narrowing to a pinprick. He thanked Martha and crossed to the creekside diner where sunlight glazed the pies and a coffee pot hissed a steady hymn. The owner, Stan, broad-shouldered, mustache-gray as road dust, slid a mug across the counter. "Passing through?" he asked. "Looking up old logging routes," Ethan said, letting the cover story breathe. "Ever hear about an armored truck that got lost out there?" The room sagged into quiet so sudden it had weight. A fork paused halfway to a mouth. The sizzling grill sounded too loud. Stan's eyes cooled by a full season. "People keep to themselves," he said, rag held still in his hand. "The woods took what the woods took." Ethan nodded, met the silence gently, paid, and stepped back into bright day. In the window he caught Stan's reflection as the man turned, shouldered through the swinging door, and lifted an old rotary phone off its hook. 2 rings, a voice. "It's Stan," he said, the glass muffling everything but intent. "We've got a traveler asking about 87. Ethan walked to his truck without changing pace. He had learned long ago that some towns don't have walls. They have rules. Sunlight made the hood of the Ford too hot to touch. Rex rested his chin on the door frame, amber eyes scanning. "All daylight," Ethan murmured, tapping the Zippo in his pocket. "Let's keep it that way." The campsite wore noon brightness like a promise. Water canteens catching sparks of sun, a lean stack of kindling, the patient geometry of a tent. Ethan knew it was wrong before the first step landed. Rex went rigid, hackles rising only a shade, the way a thunderhead rises on a blue day. In the center of Ethan's hand-built table, a hunting knife stood quivering, hammered steel, antler grip, driven deep enough to split the grain. 2 sets of boot prints curved in and out of the clearing, disciplined and unhurried. A message. "We see you. We can touch what you think is yours." Ethan's heartbeat did not quicken. It tightened. He swept the perimeter once, then twice, naming small disturbances the way a medic names bones. A broken twig, scuffed moss, a cigarette ash lodged in pine duff. Daylight made the threat more brazen, not less. He moved the truck where the track bent, hood pointed toward escape. The tent came down. The bright rectangle of its absence felt like a wound. In a shadowed thicket, he rigged a low lean-to with a camouflage tarp and branches, traded comfort for concealment, and drew thin trip lines with fishing line, threading pebble-filled tins that would sing if touched. He cached a vacuum bag of supplies, GPS, rations, first aid, and the Zippo, under a shallow cut of earth that would look like nothing to anyone who wasn't listening to the ground. Rex paced the approaches, nose sifting currents, returning to Ethan's side every circuit to lean warm, solid, and present against his shin. "Good boy," Ethan said softly. He cleaned the table, pulled the knife free, and slid it into his pack as evidence. The prints were recent, the knife newer still. Sunlight glanced off everything honest. Tin cans, the brass tag on Rex's collar, the sweat at Ethan's temple. Daylight also fell on everything else. "They want me to leave the story where they left it," he said, eyes narrowing toward the ravine. Rex's ears pricked. The forest didn't blink. "Not today." Midday made the ravine a bright bowl, every edge sketched in gold. Ethan pulled away the brush he had laid the day before and opened the armored door wide, letting the sun reach places it hadn't in decades. He photographed everything, bones in their final patience, the torn safe, the patterns of spent brass, and then knelt where Rex had first pointed him. The floor rang dull, then hollow. Beneath grime and rust, a faint rectangle waited like a breath held too long. Ethan coaxed it up with the tip of his blade, then the crowbar, careful as a man disarming a memory. The panel lifted. Below, a cavity wrapped in brittle tarp cradled bricks that time had failed to spoil, bundles in plastic, tape gone sticky with age but seals intact. He cut one open just enough to show the truth. $100 bands, crisp as if they'd slept instead of rotted. Daylight poured straight down and lit the cash without apology. He photographed, sealed one bundle in a dry bag, and replaced the panel, dressing the seam with rust flakes until the floor forgot it had been touched. Rex's growl was not loud. It was decisive. Ethan froze, listening. Engines, too heavy, on an old logging track, their sound fattened by the heat. He slid out of the steel belly and into the bright, his eyes drawing a map of cover, log, scrub, limestone shelves, the shadow that pool under alder. "With me," he breathed, and they were motion, a zig, a double back, a belt of briars ripping threads from denim but granting silence in return. The SUVs arrived sun-hot and impatient. Men climbed out in tactical gear not meant for this tangle, rifles carried like tickets that should get them what they wanted. "Spread out!" one barked, and the day echoed it back, rude with birds. Ethan lobbed a worry stone into a thicket. Leaves crackled 30 yards left. The bearded one pivoted. His partner followed the sound. "Now," Ethan whispered. Rex streaked from cover, jaws closing on the rifle stock, wrenching, releasing, gone. A shout, a stumble, and daylight broke cleaner. Ethan ran harder, aiming for the slit of a cave he'd memorized weeks ago. A quiet place for catching breath and making plans no one else could see. Inside the small, dry cave, the air was cool and smelled faintly of limestone and patience. Ethan set a compact satellite dish in the wedge of sunlight near the mouth and watched the green light steady itself. Rex lay just inside the threshold, chin on paws, listening for a world that didn't believe in walls. Ethan moved from memory to proof, the photos, the cash bundle, the lighter with its careful DM. He chased the old articles from '87 to the months after, then into property records and business filings that bloom in the open if you ask them in the right order. Deputy Daniel Murphy, the local lead on the case, retired early citing stress, then opened Murphy Development and began acquiring land, lots, an office on Main. The slope of that line didn't match a pension, it matched a score. The initials weren't for David Miller, a victim. They were for the cop who made sure the case went nowhere the minute it hit his hands. A single careless drop, the lighter, had bridged decades. Ethan encrypted everything into a concise packet for Mark Jensen, an FBI friend owed a life and trusted with one in return. "Jurisdiction is ours, but wheels take hours," Mark replied. "Can you hold?" "I can move," Ethan typed back. He created an anonymous email and attached a lit tight photo of the Zippo. Ask Harmony Creek's most successful businessman, Daniel Murphy, what he dropped in the woods in 1987. Some things don't stay buried. He hit send, then deleted the account, cut the thread, packed the gear. Daylight lay clean across the cave floor. Outside, the forest hummed like a wire. He checked Rex for cuts and found only scratches, the kind pride wears without complaint. "We're not hiding," Ethan said, palming the lighter once before stowing it deep. "We're choosing the ground." He pictured the ravine bright as a stage, tripwires tuned to sing, lines of approach folded into angles that would favor truth over bravado. Somewhere in town, a phone would ring again, and this time pride would answer. When men like Murphy come for their past, they come themselves. Afternoon stretched long enough to become evening without losing its light. The Ozarks can do that. Hold sun in their hands a little longer. Ethan set thin alarms in the brush and settled with Rex on a limestone ledge above the armored door left open like a mouth that wanted to speak. He watched dust rise on the logging track before he heard the engines. 2 SUVs rolled to a stop 100 yards out. The hulking driver and the bearded partner fanned left and right. Between them, Daniel Murphy stepped into the bright, silver hair combed back, dark coat too fine for this heat, a face that believed daylight belonged to him. "Corrigan!" the bearded one shouted into trees that gave nothing back. Ethan let a small rock skitter. Both rifles snapped toward noise. "Looking for something?" he called, voice steady, the day carrying it clean. Murphy's jaw clenched. "You don't understand what you've opened," he said, hand in his coat where a small pistol waited to be a mistake. "I understand what you closed," Ethan answered. "Two men. A case. 40 years of pretending." The driver crossed an inner trip line. Cans sang. Rex moved. A gray streak that tore the rifle from the man's hands and vanished again. Ethan flowed down, struck the bearded man at the base of the neck, and the man folded into the grass like a tent taken down in one smooth pull. Murphy fired twice, wild, muzzle flash garish in the gentle afternoon. The rounds rang off stone and died in honest air. "It's mine," Murphy spat, voice cracking under years. "All of it. I made this town." "You made a tomb," Ethan said, stepping where the light was best. "Say their names." The silence stretched until he couldn't balance on it. "They trusted me," Murphy whispered, the words walking out of him without permission. "I told them it would be easy. Miller, he saw the lighter. I couldn't." The sirens reached them before the agents did, a bright, rising braid of sound. Tires bit dirt. Vests flashed FBI. Voices became procedure. Hands took weapons and gave back air. Ethan handed the Zippo to the case agent and pointed out the hidden floor. Murphy stared at the open armored door as if it were a mirror. Daylight did the rest. In the clear light of day, the Ozarks offered more than quiet. They offered the kind of truth that can't live in shadows. Ethan and Rex did not chase vengeance. They answered a question the forest had been asking for 40 years. The bones were counted, the money logged, the phone calls recorded, and a town finally exhaled. Some endings don't feel like triumph. They feel like a burden set down carefully, so it won't break when it lands. If you have ever carried a secret, you know this weight, and you know the courage it takes to let it go in front of everyone. Loyalty, like daylight, does its best work when it is steady and unafraid. May we all have a friend like Rex when the past comes calling.